What's going on, everybody? As always, for starters, the land acknowledgement. I'm recording this here on occupied Tewa territory, otherwise known as Albuquerque, New Mexico. Together, let us continue this fight and struggle for Black and Indigenous liberation. And you already know what it is. Your host, Zachariah Jazz, and this is a Crime Matters More Than Who segment of It's Controversial. I have a couple topics that I want to talk to you about today, and this is going to be a long segment, like the one I did the other day on Legacy Church. That was like an hour and a half. This is probably going to be around maybe around the same length. I don't know. We'll see how it goes. But because it's a longer video, I'm not going to show my face for it, because I don't think you want to look at my ugly self for that long anyway. So it's all good. I see how it is, but just mess with you. But before we get started, I'd like to just give a brief warning that there will be some depictions of violence, some foul language, and talks of drug use and addiction. So I just want to get that out of the way for anybody who doesn't want to hear that kind of language, whatever, and this quick disclaimer. So my first topic of discussion is going to be on this article I saw the other day on KOB4. I think it was KOB4, KOAT, one of them two. I don't know. It doesn't really matter. Anyway, but it was the headline was talking about how hundreds of police officers could be getting their jobs or like some back pay, could be getting their jobs back or some back pay. So I'm going to read off of this these two articles. I have one that was from the other day and then one that was written a year ago. So let's get started. This one is written by T.J. Wilhelm. He's an investigative reporter for this news organization. I can't remember which one it was because when I recorded it, I didn't get that. So it says hundreds of Albuquerque police could be getting pay or even their jobs back. That's if a decision made by the city's labor board holds up in court against challenges by the police department. Under its agreement with the police officers union, APD has 90 days to investigate an officer who is accused of misconduct. Union officials say the city has violated that agreement hundreds of times, and under a recent ruling, APD is being ordered they have to give money back to two suspended officers who said they were done wrong. The ruling by the labor board comes at a time when the Albuquerque Police Department has been trying to crack down on discipline. We are holding officers accountable when they need to be held accountable, Police Chief Harold Medina said a year ago after the city was criticized by the Department of Justice Monitor in one of its status reports. They said we were allergic to discipline. Fast forward a year later, APD is behind in investigating its own. The city of Albuquerque wants to hold officers accountable, and we're not afraid of accountability, said Sean Willoughby, president of the Albuquerque Police Officers Association. You can hold officers accountable. We expect due process to be filed, and we expect this process to be a timely one. Willoughby filed a complaint to the city's labor board on behalf of two officers. In a unanimous decision, the board ruled in favor of the officers. One of them was suspended for violating the city's use of force policy and received a 2-week suspension. That cost that officer more than $3,000 in pay. The fact of the matter is, it's egregious, it's unfair, Willoughby said. And the city of Albuquerque is willingly and understanding that they are violating the agreement they made with their officers. The city is appealing the decision in district court. A judge has yet to make a ruling. So what does all of this mean for the officers who could be affected? If the personnel board's decision is upheld, these other officers could go back and say, we need to reopen our cases too. KOAT legal expert John Day said, that could mean they could potentially be brought back on. They could be whatever the punishment that was handed down could be voided. I mean, there are a lot of possibilities here, so that's why this could be real significant. Willoughby says there are as many as 100 police officers who could have their discipline overturned, and some of them were fired from the department. There are several hundred several hundreds of hours of discipline that have been imposed on officers that are untimely, Willoughby said. Officers have been removed from their positions as a result of these investigations, and it is going to have a major impact in this police department. For nearly 7 years, the police department has been operating under a settlement agreement with the Department of Justice. The agreement was reached after a DOJ investigation determined that APD had a pattern and practice of using excessive force. Every 6 months, a corner-pointed monitor that makes sure APD follows the agreement issues a report updating the community on how the police department is doing. In its last report filed just 2 weeks ago, it mentioned APD has a backlog of 667 uninvestigated use of force cases. Every time an officer uses force, it must be reviewed to determine if a policy was violated. KOAT reached out to the city attorney following that report, and he tells us that a new process has been developed. APD spokesman Gilbert Gallegos said in an email that APD is not taking longer to investigate misconduct. The APOA has challenged a long-standing interpretation of the collective bargaining agreement. The conflict surfaced recently as a result of the requirements under the settlement agreement to review all uses of force which have led to subsequent misconduct investigations, Gallegos wrote. Willoughby says the city is trying to please the DOJ so much so that when the monitor doesn't agree with how APD disciplines a certain officer, the department then reopens the case and issues a new punishment. So we have officers that have several cases, 5 or 6 cases that have been reinvestigated that were in policy and now are all of a sudden out of policy, and discipline has been imposed and officers have been removed, Willoughby said. The city has yet to reinstate any officers or give them back pay. Day says that's unlikely to happen until the city exhausts all of its appeals, and that could go as high as the state Supreme Court. So in February, I believe it was, there was a new investigative team that came in. It's called the External Force Investigative Team, and they released their first quarterly report on July 16th. This was from July 16th to October 16th this year. So let me read a little part of this real quick. Well, I'm going to read a few of this first report, but in February 2021, the Albuquerque City Council and the United States Department of Justice entered into a stipulated agreement. An order is filed with the United States District Court for the District of New Mexico on February 26, 2021 to stay a contempt of court proceedings, stipulated order Doc 720. The stipulated order established the External Force Investigations Team and its mandate. On May 2, 2021, a preliminary contract was signed between DLG Accounting and Advisory Services and Albuquerque Police Department. On June 23, 2021, the full contract was signed by DLG LLC and the city, enabling EFIT to commence full operations on July 16, 2021. That is the External Force Investigative Team. Pursuant to the relevant documents, EFIT is on call 24/7 and must respond to all call-outs within 1 hour of notification. All use of force investigations must be completed within 60 days with a 30-day supervisory review period for a total of 90 days from start to finish. Pursuant to the order, EFIT is to conduct joint investigations with APD Internal Affairs Force Division of all Level 2 and Level 3 use of force incidents. This includes all tactical deployments where use of force is utilized. EFIT is also to assist APD with training concerning the use of force. The EFIT executive team worked with APD IAFD to establish a detailed process narrative that governs the response protocols to any level 2 and 3 use of force cases. These documents are the basis for EFIT to evaluate IAFD. So that's just a quick introduction on what is being done as a result of this lack of investigating these use of force cases. So now, this was the article from a year ago, released by KOB or KOAT. I can't remember which one it was. Okay. Albuquerque police are required under their own policies to report on police misconduct every 4 months, but Target 7 found that nothing has been published since last year. When asked, APD said it was an oversight and quickly published 2 missing reports online after they were contacted by Target 7. Yeah, so that's KOET 7. When the reports were published, Target 7 discovered the following. The number of policy violations being investigated jumped from 291 to 913. The number of policies violated increased from 190 to 716. The number of violations requiring a suspension rose from 52 to 237. 5 times more police employees were being fired. The data analyzed by Target 7 compares the last 12 months to the previous. It also includes civilian employees such as dispatchers and sworn law enforcement officers. We are holding officers accountable when they need to be held accountable, said newly named interim police chief Harold Medina. This is a positive thing. For a lot of years going back decades, we didn't see these type of numbers in termination. One of the things we need to build upon is public trust and legitimacy in the community. Medina, who took over for retiring police chief Michael Geyer last week, says some of the increases can be explained by APD following requirements mandated by the Department of Justice, and that includes reporting power level policy violations like not showing up on time or being insubordinate. Medina says the DOJ told them that APD was allergic to discipline, and at one point I think those were the words that were used. So the department is cracking down. Police Union President Sean Willoughby says APD is going too far. This isn't egregious, quotes, but I feel like that might be a typo. Willoughby said, "This doesn't mean that Albuquerque cops are bad and can't follow policy." The union leader says officers are being punished for things like not putting away lapel cameras properly to wearing sunglasses while speaking to the public. What I see happening is officers not using force when they should. Willoughby said, "I see officers hesitating. I see officers not wanting to engage with the public simply because they don't want to go to internal affairs again. They don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to have to tell their families, I got in trouble, I am being investigated again." Social justice activists say they want to know more about what is going on and are skeptical about why APD was not publishing the reports on their website. The data released does raise a lot of questions than answers, and there is still a lot of missing gaps, said Devontae Watson, a social justice activist and a consultant for the city's Office of Equity and Inclusion. It is really important to be accountable and have full transparency with the community because it establishes trust. Chief Medina said he didn't know why the reports were not being published. "I don't have the exact answer as to why we had the delay," Medina said. "In terms of gathering data, it is widely known that is an area we struggle with, we take ownership of, and we are working to increase our abilities to gather that data." He said things are going to change. "I hope that from this point forward we are able to publish our data on time and we can correct our lack of being able to meet the deadlines of the past," Medina said. The report lists every incident in which officers were accused of wrongdoing, what policies they violated, if any, and how they were punished. But Watson says the report is missing one thing that could make APD even more transparent: require the collection of data on people of color and all people. Watson said, "We want to know who are involved in these officers," I think that's a typo too, "involved with these officers and who is being done wrong." So let me go back a little bit. I think there's just something that doesn't really add up to me, right? So the DOJ and this new external force investigative team, they're really only investigating things like, use of force and why there's such a backlog of use of force cases, 667. But Sean Willoughby is crying about these cops getting punished for small things, for little things. So does that mean that after these cases are being reviewed, that they're going back over them, that these officers aren't actually getting in trouble still for these use of force cases, that they're only getting in trouble for the small things? Because, if so, why is he complaining? But let's read. I'm going to read some screenshots I took from the EFIT, if I can freaking get to them. One second. So, as of this report, 4 out of the 38 of the closed cases were found to be not within the APD use of force policies. Approximately 14 out of the 38, that's 36.84%, closed cases were found to be out of compliance when evaluated against the process narrative utilized to assess investigations. EFIT's next quarterly report, which is to be filed with the court on January 16, 2022, will have a more complete analysis based on the findings of both APD, use of force compliance, and case investigative compliance. So, I mean, that doesn't really specify if it's going based on the use of force policies that were that were active at that time, or if they are not within the use of force policies that have been recommended or mandated by the Department of Justice, right? But either way, they would still be out of compliance. And obviously something was not being done right. So, on to the next one. I think I missed a part of this. The IAFD sergeant determines if the force is within APD policy, then forwards for an IAFD command review. It is after the command level that the EFIT executive team reviews the use of force determination and recommends closing a case. Provisions have been written into the stipulated order should EFIT need to assume full responsibility of an investigation or disagree with investigative findings. Between October 25, 2021 and October 31, 2021, EFIT assumed 9 use of force supervisor and command reviews and 1 full investigation pursuant to paragraph 23B of the stipulated order, as these investigations became close to violating the stipulated timelines. When EFIT first began to fulfill its court-ordered mandate, the executive team reviewed 3 closed use of force investigations from early 2021, consisting of level 2 use of force, level 3 use of force, and a tactical activation. EFIT evaluated these cases not only to ensure the correct classification was used, but also to determine whether the investigations were thorough and objective. EFIT presented its completed reviews to APD, the independent monitor, and DOJ on June 21st, 2021, during the independent monitoring team's site visit. In June 2021, Mr. Nair, Mr. Herlock responded to a tactical activation that involved the use of force. We noticed that IAFD had a very disorganized approach once on scene, resulting in tactical officers and the subject individual remaining on scene longer than needed. EFIT recommended to Commander Lowe and Commander Teresa Bowie, SOD, that APD rectify and streamline the process. APD has now implemented corrective changes. Additionally, as the tactical team will assist other New Mexico law enforcement agency out-of-area mutual aid, it still needs to report any use of force by an APD officer. So, I mean, it wasn't that they intentionally just wanted to go back and just reopen these cases and tell these people that, you know, they did wrong and then they were disciplined. No, it's just that the way that the investigations were being done weren't adequate. They weren't efficient. They weren't up to par, you know. It was lazy and disorganized. So it wasn't that before it was within policy. It's not the case. It's that before they weren't in policy, it's just that the review board wasn't doing their job right. Okay? So it's just more countercostal language that Sean Willoughby just wants to use, and because he's a crybaby. And he acknowledges that, you know, DOJ is here, that they're not going anywhere, that they have to meet compliance, and they have to you know, do everything they can to get the Department of Justice out of here as fast as they can. But that's not what he's doing. He's not trying to meet compliance. He doesn't want to meet operational compliance. What he wants is a violent department, and what he wants is for these officers to be left the fuck alone. He don't want them getting in trouble for stupid shit. I mean, that doesn't matter. Like, who cares? I don't want them getting in trouble for stupid shit either. I want them to be in trouble for these use of force cases. So, when EFIT first began to fulfill its court-ordered mandate, the executive team reviewed 3 closed use of force cases investigations from early 21, consisting of... Oh yeah, I think I already read that. Oh, here we go. Here we go. When EFIT began, IAFD was conducting interviews somewhat haphazardly in random locations. Detectives were asking leading questions and did not allow witnesses to state what happened by using open-ended questions. Essentially, critical listening skills were not present. There were interruptions of interviewees during their statements. EFIT stressed to avoid leading questions. In one case, a detective told the interviewee off the record and prior to the interview that he did not see any issues with the incident. The EFIT investigator addressed this with the detective, explaining it is inappropriate to provide an opinion to an employee, especially prior to conducting an investigation. Often, IAFD detectives and the officer under use of force investigation were dressed inappropriately and unprofessionally. Several investigative reports with numerous grammatical errors. Yeah, the last part doesn't really matter. But this next part is significant, and one thing I want to point out, because it's evidence of Sean Willoughby's resistance to the DOJ. Union representatives often interrupted the interviews in clear contravention of the Albuquerque Police Officers Association's collective bargaining agreement. Forms were often incomplete or not filled out at all. In addition, the schedules for IAFD supervisors and the assigned detectives were not coordinated. And in the next part, it does go on to say that prior to that, it was addressed and the union representatives no longer interfered as such. But, that's neither here nor there. It's the fact that it happened initially, right? So, now I'm going to share with you some of Sean Willoughby's own words. It's just him acknowledging, that he knows what needs to be, that the court, that that they're not going anywhere. I've covered this interview before, but I'm gonna do it again just for just so you can hear more of his own bullshit.
Officers. However, it was also a time that led to DOJ intervention because there were some practices within APD that needed change, needed to be reformed. So we can't ignore that fact. So how do we get DOJ reform to make this the best department we can be, while at the same time giving you guys the ability to do your job and keep the community safe? We've got to find a compromise.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's far less about DOJ, right? DOJ is not going anywhere. The consent decree's here. It's going to stay. It's much more about the city of Albuquerque and leadership, because the city of Albuquerque is a party. So the city of Albuquerque, nobody can dictate to them what their policies are. They're allowed to choose a policy that allows officers to be successful. They're allowed to tell the DOJ, look, this isn't working. We've lost more officers this year than we have in the last 3 altogether. It's getting scary. It should scare our community. It should scare you and me who have kids that are growing up in this community, because the truth is, until we see action, it's not going to get better. And the blame really lies with the city, because the DOJ's here. They're never going away. They're supposed to build community trust, and they're supposed to build credibility. And after 8 years in Seattle and burning down a police station and creating the autonomous zone, I don't know where the recipe is for success with DOJ, but the first problem is depending on DOJ to make this a better city, because Albuquerque has a responsibility to make this a better city, and our leadership has a responsibility to step in and support police officers and support victims of crime, which isn't happening. We're failing at it.
We appreciate your passion.
So based on that alone, he definitely knows that the DOJ's here. They're not going to go anywhere, so he needs to meet operational compliance if he wants to even think about getting rid of the Department of Justice, right? So going back to the article in which he gave an interview on, and how he submitted complaints to the labor board, and how the labor board voted in unanimous decision for the police. So I'm going to read off an article from this website called The Conversation, and its headline is "Why Police Unions Are Not a Part of the American Labor Movement." So the writer was Paul F. Clark from Penn State, and this is The Conversation. In the wake of George Floyd's death at the hands of Minneapolis police officer, news reports have suggested that police unions bear some of the responsibility for the violence perpetrated against African Americans. Critics have assailed these unions for protecting officers who have abused their authority. Derek Chauvin, the former police officer facing second-degree murder charges for Floyd's death, had nearly 20 complaints filed against him during his career, but only received 2 letters of reprimand. Now that's a trend you will see a lot in a lot of the reports on the police website on CABQ. That these officers often only getting a letter of reprimand, word of reprimand, whatever, it's basically a slap on the wrist. Many people who support labor unions in principle, who view them as countervailing force against the power of employers, have only recently come to view police unions as problematic, as entities that perpetuate a culture of racism and violence. Right, that's what Sean Willoughby is doing with his entire Crime Matters More campaign. But this sentiment reverberates through the history of the U.S. labor movement. As a labor scholar who has written about unions for decades, I think this viewpoint can be explained by the fact that police unions differ fundamentally from almost all trade unions in America. Full soldiers for the status quo. For many veterans of the labor movement, police have been on the wrong side of the centuries-old struggle between workers and employers. Rather than side with other members of the working class, police have used their legal authority to protect businesses and private property, enforcing laws viewed by many as anti-union. The strain between law enforcement and labor goes back to the origins of American unions in the mid-19th century. Workers formed unions to fight for wage increases, reduced working hours, and humane working conditions. For employers, this was an attack on the existing societal power structure. They enlisted the government as a defender of capital and property rights, and police officers were the foot soldiers who defended the status quo. There's one thing that I want to touch on, and that's the beginnings of the history of the workers' unions and how they were inherently racist themselves in the beginning. So, black people during the what was it after the Civil War? What was it? The Reconstruction period. During the Reconstruction period and after, in the 19th century, workers' unions started to form, right? And they did everything that this article just mentioned. But black people weren't a part of these unions for the very reason that, white owners or white people, white employers, right? Black people would look up to them, and they would get employed by them after their servitude and their slavery was over, because what were they going to do? They needed a job, so their former masters were now their employers, right? And so they loved them for it, for paying them now a wage, and giving them homes, somewhere to live, da 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 da. And the white union workers didn't like that, because they were forming unions against these former masters, now employers of these black people. So they weren't welcoming black workers into these unions, who they themselves needed a pay raise too, because even then black people were paid lower wages than their white counterparts, right? So I just wanted to cover that real quick, so that people can understand that these unions weren't very friendly of black people back then either. These labor unions, they were all white men, basically. So back to this article here. When workers managed to form unions, companies called on local police to disperse union gatherings, marches, and picket lines, using violence and mass arrests to break the will of strikers. A narrow focus. Police work is a fundamentally conservative act, and police officers tend to be politically conservative and Republican. A poll of police conducted in September 2016 by Police Magazine found that 84% of officers intended to vote for Donald Trump that November. And law enforcement unions like the Fraternal Order of Police and International Union of Police Associations and the National Border Patrol Council all endorsed Trump's candidacy in 2016. This contrasts sharply with the 39% share of all union voters who voted for Trump, and the fact that every other union which made an endorsement supported Hillary Clinton, exclusively protecting the interests of their members without consideration for other workers also sets police unions apart from other labor groups. Yes, the first priority of any union is to fight for their members, but most other unions see that fight in the context of a larger movement that fights for all workers. Police unions do not see themselves as part of this movement, with one exception, the Internal Union of Police Associations, which represents just 2.7% of American police. Law enforcement unions are not affiliated with the AFL-CIO, the U.S. labor body that unites all unions. Alternative justice system. A central concern with police unions is that they use collective bargaining to negotiate contracts that reduce police transparency and accountability. This allows officers who engage in excessive violence to avoid the consequences of their actions and remain on the job. In a way, some police unions have created an alternative justice system that prevents police departments and municipalities from disciplining or discharging officers who have committed crimes against the people they are sworn to serve. And that's exactly why he has started this entire campaign. This whole Crime Matters More campaign, and why he's resisting the Department of Justice so fervently. Right? And he hasn't said anything about the CPCs, because the CPCs basically, kiss the hands of the police as it is. The APOA or the CPOAs haven't really done anything to address the police use of force, You haven't done anything about that, not that I've heard anyway. And it's why in this article it states that so many police officers could possibly be getting their jobs back, because since these two have won the unanimous board decisions from the labor board, how many more can come forward and say, hey, why aren't you looking over my case too? And I guess we'll cross that bridge when we get there, because this is a big concern and something that, of course, I'm going to track very, very closely. But back to this article. In Minneapolis, residents filed more than 2,600 misconduct complaints against police officers between 2012 and 2020. But only 12 of those grievances resulted in discipline. The most significant punishment any officer received was a 40-hour suspension. Besides collective bargaining, police have used the political process, including candidate endorsements and lobbying, to secure local and state legislation that protects their members and quells efforts to provide greater police accountability. So, Sean Willoughby and one of his officers, when they took their case to the labor board, he was suspended for 72 hours for a use of force case. And that resulted in him losing $3,000. And he's saying that because it wasn't completed within the 90-day requirement mandated by the CBA. That's the what the hell is it? Dang it. Why can't I think of this freaking... what the hell is it? Collective bargaining agreement. There we go. That's what it's called. And that's also in line with, with the Justice Department's, the cost of the consent decree, that has to be completed within 90 days. And he knows that Albuquerque, the APD, had problems with gathering data and investigating these cases, and IAFD specifically was not thorough enough in investigating these cases. So what he's essentially mad about is the fact that that a department that he had no problems with prior, to the happenings of in recent years, like this year and last year, and this new EFIT team coming in. He had no problem with IAFD having a backlog of investigated use of force cases. He had no problem with his officers going unpunished and, you know, not meeting operational compliance. He had no problem with it at all. It's not until that things are being done in the right way, in the way that they should have been before, that that's only now that he has a problem. And he's using the collective bargaining agreement to go against the CASA. And I don't know, but to me that sounds like a union, you know, in a contempt of court, right? That he's violating the Department of Justice settlement agreement. That he's violating it. Now, I don't know the legal terms or whatever like that. I don't know the litigation and all the policy and stuff. I don't know that language. You know, I didn't go to law school or none of that stuff. But on my basic understanding of things, that is in violation of the consent decree. Because it wasn't the fact that, you know, that these cases were within use of force policy before. It's just that they weren't being thoroughly investigated before. So, I don't know. Let's get back to this conversation, or to this article. There's only one paragraph left of it. Because of this power, critics claim that police unions don't feel accountable to the citizens they serve. An attorney who sued the Minneapolis Police Department on behalf of a black resident who was severely beaten by police officers said that he is convinced that Minneapolis officers think that they don't have to abide by their own training and rules when dealing with the public. And, oh no, there wasn't only one more paragraph, but it continues. George Floyd's death has raised serious concerns about the current role of police and police unions in our society. Several unions have demanded that the International Union of Police Associations be expelled from the U.S. Labor Federation. Other unions oppose expulsion. They argue that the labor movement can have a greater impact on a police union that is inside the House of Labor. In any case, there is a growing recognition that police unions differ significantly from other unions, and there is a growing acceptance that they are not part of the larger American labor movement, but rather a narrowly focused group pursuing their own self-interests, often to the detriment of the nation at large. Okay, that was the end of the article. So, because I'm not very proficient in the language of policy, or I can't effectively explain to you the power of police unions at large, right? I'm going to share with you a clip of a video. Well, I'm going to show you a video of this man named Richard Grier, and this is from his YouTube channel. And in this video, he's talking about the power of police unions. So let's get to that.
Shield their members from accountability for the killings of unarmed black people and other heinous misconduct. No progress can be made without reining in the unchecked power of police unions. Look, I was Secretary of Labor. I'm in favor of unions, but police unionizing can have deadly consequences. One study found that extending collective bargaining rights to Florida sheriff's offices led to an estimated 40% increase in violent police misconduct. Another study found that the protections built into the police union contracts in America's 100 largest cities were significantly correlated with the killing of unarmed civilians. Another study suggests that the increase in police unionization from the 1950s through the 1980s resulted in about 60 to 70 additional civilians killed by the police each year, the majority of whom were people of color. Experts believe the protections in police union contracts give too many officers the sense they can abuse their power. Police contracts often have provisions allowing departments to erase disciplinary records within a few years, enabling officers with histories of misconduct to clear their records. Others allow accused officers to access their investigative files before being questioned, letting them manipulate their story. Others set strict time limits for citizens to file complaints about officers. Some prevent anonymous complaints from being investigated at all. All these provisions allow officers with histories of misconduct to stay on the force. Derek Chauvin, for instance, had at least 17 complaints lodged against him and never faced any discipline beyond 2 letters of reprimand. Needless to say, other public sector employees are not afforded these extraordinary protections. Even if an officer is fired, there's an extensive appeals process that usually works out in their favor. In Philadelphia, 62% of officers fired from 2006 to 2017 were reinstated. In San Antonio, 70% were. When New York police officer Daniel Pantaleo was finally fired, 5 years after choking Eric Garner to death, the New York Police Department's largest union responded by threatening a work slowdown. Police unions fight cities that enact even mild reforms, like establishing civilian review boards. The result? Review boards are notoriously ineffective by design. Some police union contracts with cities forbid them even creating a review board. In the tragic case of Breonna Taylor, Louisville's review board could not start an investigation, take complaints from citizens, or recommend discipline for the officer. All it could do was make recommendations for policy or training changes. It's the same in other cities. Oversight boards have no investigative power, no subpoena power, and no discipline power. Police unions also wield enormous political clout. A Guardian investigation found police unions spent about $87 million influencing state and local legislation over the past 2 decades, and at least $47.3 million on campaign contributions and lobbying at the federal level. In 2017, police unions spent $2 million to influence legislation in California alone. Now, don't get me wrong. Stopping the abuses of police unions must not become a stalking horse for attacking public sector unions generally. But the unchecked powers of police unions urgently need to be addressed. To start, lawmakers must change state labor laws to restrict the subjects police unions can bargain over. They should limit negotiations to pay and benefits, not how police do their jobs, how and when they use force, and how and when they are disciplined. For decades, police unions have shielded officers from accountability, bullied cities into doing their bidding, and attacked lawmakers who took them on. It's past time to ensure they can no longer block accountability under the guise of collective bargaining.
So I definitely got his name wrong. His name is Robert Reich, not Richard Grier. Grier is the last name of the former police chief before Harry Medina. So this next clip I'm going to show you is from this YouTube channel called Facts on the Ground, and in it they interviewed 2 people by the names of David Correa and Tyler Wall. David Correa is actually he is where'd it go? David Correa is an American scholar and activist and an associate professor of American Studies at the University of New Mexico, where his classes focus on the relationship between culture, politics, and the environment. I got that from Wikipedia. But I've attended panels in which David Correa was speaking, and I believe I've seen him in person like maybe once. But he's done a lot of work here in Albuquerque, and Tyler Wall is an associate professor of sociology at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. So him and David, they've written 2 books together. They are A Police, A Field Guide, and that one came out in 2017, and one that just came out a couple months ago, Violent Order Essays on the nature of police violence. Essays on the nature of police, I guess. So go check those books out. I have not read them myself yet, but I definitely intend on it. I think they could be a good source of information for activists and organizers on the ground who focus on this topic of police violence. So here is that clip now by of David Cray and Tyler Wall.
Can I go back to one comment you just made?
Yeah, absolutely.
Before we jump into that question, I think you mentioned violence workers, and that's a term that's taken on I think some political meaning in the last few years. From Nicole Siegel's got a great book titled "Violence Workers," and we use the term as well in the field guide. But I just want to highlight, I guess, to listeners what exactly that means, because there's a tendency we could focus on both the word violence, as it's implying that the only thing cops do is go and thump the racialized poor over the head with a nightstick, and of course they do that a lot. But when we say violence work, we're referencing violence as kind of constitutive or built into the police project itself as kind of a institution and process of the state, and how we can't just define violence by its common uses. The majority of police violence is legal, and therefore doesn't even get written into the law or much of our public imagination as violence, right, itself. And so violence is always, kind of present in police use of force continuum, which we write about in the field guide, which is kind of a bullshit justification for police violence that police use all the time. But one insight from the use of force continuum that police even use is many of them actually locate the very presence of the officer as the starting point of the violence, right? The threat. And if we take that seriously, it means that the very presence of a police officer or a cop, even when they're not actually pointing their gun or firing their gun or hitting someone or tasing someone or sicking a dog on them, is fundamentally violent, right? And so I just think that needs to, and one other way to get at that too is that the late legal scholar Robert Cover, right, has a famous line where he says, "No one goes to jail willingly or voluntarily." And I use this with my students a lot. Somebody comes in the classroom and arrests me, or a cop comes in and it looks like I go peacefully. We all know that if we really think about it, it's not I'm not going to jail peacefully. I'm doing it because I know damn good and well that if I drag my foot, if I run my mouth, that presence that's already embodied in the cop is going to come out, and now it's going to become visible, right? And so that's just a key point, that when we say violence workers, we're not just talking about lethal violence or what goes by police brutality,
right?
That it's a much more mundane process, right? And then the second point on that is violence workers, but another way to think it is like violence specialists, or because they're not workers in solidarity with other workers, right? Yet, as we point out in the field guide, violence is a condition of police work, right? Meaning you can't be a cop without signing up for the use of violence in this broad conceptualization of violence is basically just the presence of the state, right? That always is backing up its mandates through some threat of, or else. And so they're workers, but they're not. And, you're seeing various unions trying to grapple with this question about the role of police, in the workers movement too, right? So anyway, I just wanted to highlight that, so that, violence work, that we're able to see policing as fundamentally a violent institution that's linked to this history that David had pointed out earlier, that it doesn't, it's not only violent whenever we see it as violent in the common conception of what violence means, right? And we need a language for that, I think, right? The way I describe it is many people would be upset if not always, obviously, but if a SWAT officer comes in, fully loaded to read books to your children, some parents, even, liberal, might even get upset about that. Oh, this is not a good influence, but they wouldn't mind if it's like, the regular officer friendly that's coming in with McGruff the crime dog. right? One is coded as violent and masculine and patriarchal and authoritarian and threatening, and the other one is like, good and noble and caring, the good cop, right? Even that good cop is low, he's still carrying a gun on his hip, right? Or the nightstick, and we all know what the badge kind of signifies there. So anyway, that's just a kind of rejoinder to that I want to make sure listeners kind of to I guess understand where we're coming from, and I think other scholars too that are using that term, violence work and violence workers.
That's a good way to, to answer your question, Jesse, with that. That the way that Tyler just described that really was how we're thinking about cops, right? That they are engaging in labor, right? And what is this labor? What kind of labor is it, and who does it serve? And I have sort of a background so politically in eco-socialism, and so I'm really fascinated by sort of environmental politics and movement struggles. And when we think about like labor, Marx is very clear, like the only labor that counts is productive labor, right? That's all that matters in capitalist society, right? Productive labor. And if labor is not productive, then it doesn't generate value. So what is the productive capacity and what is the productive purpose of police violence? What is it out to do, really? And so one of the, I think, usually radical analyses of cops kind of limit that analysis to the sort of standard kind of like, first contradiction of capitalism kind of thing, where the same exploited workers are the valued consumers, right? And so the increased sort of exploitation of the worker, which is the sort of trend in capitalism, ends up undermining the very basis of capitalism itself, right? So it produces this this realization crisis. And so what are cops if not a way to manage all the contradictions, to make to limit the options and opportunities for labor to organize collectively, to limit the opportunity for consumers to be treated anything other than as sort of commodities themselves as well. And so so we talk a lot about cops as sort of managing the antagonisms of capital, and often it's urban, right? We're thinking about sort of urban policing. We're thinking about municipal police departments and the way that particularly sort of racialized capitalism, the cops patrol the racial line, and that serves ultimately the bottom line and sort of capitalist accumulation. But we're more interested in sort of seeing a much more broad view of police, as Tyler, I think mentioning at the beginning. When we think of police, we don't only think of people in uniforms and guns, right? We're thinking of the police powers as they're elaborated by the state, and they're distributed broadly through the state apparatuses, various state apparatuses. And how does that function? And so, as an eco-socialist, I'm really interested in this sort of, the way in which it's not just labor that must be available to capital where and when it needs it, but nature as well, right? Mm-hmm. So it's and not, as we point out in Violent Orders, like neither nature nor workers are willing to be where capital wants them and in what amounts, right? The fact that they are is a police accomplishment. The fact that they are made available, cheaply, ready available, nature and labor, is a result of the policing of nature and labor. So the book, Violent Orders, is an effort to sort of think through that. Like, how is police violence an environmental justice issue, right? What is the role of police violence in sort of inaugurating and defending sort of like environmental relations, whether it's the policing of environmental movements, whether it's
violence workers is definitely a term I'm going to adopt myself. But I mean, the point that all of this is making is relevant to exactly the work that I'm trying to do, and exactly, the language that I hear come from Sean Willoughby and the APOA, and only it only causes more concern, because the general public right now is definitely in support of police officers and and the violence that they do, right? Because it like Tyler Wall said, it's not inherently looked at in the perspective of violence that we as a public overall imagine, when we see something violent happening. It's basically, it's what it is state sanctioned violence, against the people, and more often than not against the marginalized communities, black, indigenous people, black, brown people, the LGBTQ plus community, all of that, and it's something that needs to change. And I've never been one to believe in really reform, despite what my past language has maybe insinuated, or people have thought it insinuated, and before anybody goes on to calling me a socialist or a Marxist commie or anything like that, in my study, my belief would align more with an anarchist. So next, my next topic I want to get to is an article put out by KOB4. And first, I just want to say this topic not only is in essence part of what my campaign Crime Matters More Than Who is about, advocating for the unhoused communities and people who are struggling from addiction, that why reasons, in a way to fight crime as a way of preventing it from ever happening by getting the community and affected people the resources that they need to have a better quality of life. So this article from KOB says pedestrians concerned over littered walkway to nearby school. Now, aside from what I just mentioned as to why this is important to me, it's additionally important to me because I live in this community. I live in this neighborhood. This walkway is literally like 100 yards away from me. So I'm gonna read this article here, and then there's a follow-up one that was just released yesterday. So here we go. It's not a secret, Albuquerque has a growing homeless population, and now one neighborhood says they no longer feel comfortable letting their kids walk to school because of the tents and shopping carts that line the sidewalks. Autumn Avia, a concerned grandma, sent KOB4 a video of the sidewalk that she and her grandson used to take while walking to school. Now it's nearly impassable because of the junk and clutter. In the last few months, she's decided it would be better to drive her grandson to school even though it takes longer. It's hard to explain to my 6-year-old grandson why we can't walk to school anymore. It's hard to explain to him when we drive by here because we see it every day. And it's hard to explain why these people aren't getting help. It makes him sad, Avia said. Avia's grandson goes to Christine Duncan Charter School near the Walmart on Coors. Their house is right across I-40. So the easiest way to get to school is to walk across a pedestrian bridge. We enjoyed walking to school every day, and now we can't, Avia said. The sidewalks are lined with both full and abandoned shopping carts, piles of blankets and trash. Multiple neighbors say they have called 311 asking the city to clear the area, but they keep getting the same response. If they don't want to leave this area, they don't have to leave, Avia said, is what the city tells her about the homeless camping on the sidewalk near her house. So in other words, they are doing what they want in our neighborhoods. Then on the occasion when the city does stop by, Avia says, they just move the stuff to the side and in a few hours it's back, sometimes even more or worse. It's a frustrating cycle for the folks who live in this neighborhood and for the folks who live on the sidewalk. Some homeless say they are also fed up with the city. With the city, if it's out of sight, it's out of mind. As long as we stay out of sight, no one minds. 31-year-old homeless man Jonathan Montoya explains in his makeshift camp by the bridge. But the problem is they are sweeping us under the rug, and that is what bothers me. Montoya has called the corner of Juniper Road and Atrisco Drive Northwest home for nearly 5 months. He has a tent, blankets, and even storage shelves lined up in the open space near the pedestrian bridge that crosses I-40. I don't know why us homeless people make a mess so much. I try to clean it up, Montoya says. Montoya said he used to live over on 98th, but left that area because too many thieves kept coming into his camp. He has tried living at other places, but has found the safest place to be on city property. This spot right here, it belongs to the city. I figured everywhere else is private property. People aren't even calling the cops anymore. One homeless guy was hit with a crowbar the other day because he was sleeping by a dumpster. Over here it's city land, so I figure I won't have a crowbar waking me up and they can't kick me out, Montoya said. While the city can't tell him to leave this area, neighbors are saying there has to be a better option. I feel bad for these people, Avia says. There has to be some kind of change for them as well as for us, because it is affecting not only our neighborhoods but also them. They need some kind of help or place to go. The city is currently working on the Gateway Center over on Gibson, but it's still about a year away from opening and neighborhoods want an answer now. KOB4 asked Montoya if he's heard about the Gateway Center and if he would go there once it opens. He said no one has explained to him what the center will be like, and he's skeptical of whether or not it will help him. The Solid Waste Department is working within the city limits of the law to address encampments. There have been numerous 311 reports about the I-40 catwalk, and Solid Waste has responded and addressed the area following every report. But as KOB4 saw today, the encampment is still there. We followed up with an email asking for a more detailed response and what has been done to address that area. So, reading the second article that was released just yesterday. Let my phone load. Homelessness in Albuquerque is a growing problem. Earlier this week, we highlighted the issue some parents are having near I-40 and Coors. They told KOB4 they no longer feel comfortable letting their kids walk to school by a homeless camp. But KOB4 found out it's not just the neighbors who are frustrated with the city. The director of the city's solid waste department, Matthew Whalen, explains it is a long process from when the city gets a complaint about a homeless camp to when it gets cleared out, if it ever gets cleared out. I don't have an exact number of how many complaints we have received in this area, but we have received several. We have spent time in this area cleaning up encampments, Whalen said. But KOB4 discovered the camp is still there. With this specific camp near the I-40 walking bridge, clearing it out gets even more complicated because it's not just city land they're dealing with. The area is also owned by the New Mexico Department of Transportation. So when it's an area where we have jurisdiction, we can go address, but when it's an area where there are multiple jurisdictions, whether it be another agency or private property, we have to work in conjunction with those people to get those encampments cleaned up, Whalen said. Whalen explains the only time they can immediately clear out a camp is if it is putting the campers or community members in danger. Otherwise, there are multiple steps the city has to follow. We work in conjunction with the Family and Community Services Department and Albuquerque Community Safety, so when an encampment is called in, Family and Community Services will send one of their outreach providers to go and speak to the people to see what services they might want, what services we are offering, what services are available to them, Whalen said. After the assessment, people have 72 hours to clear the area, but camps that are cleared don't always stay that way. You cannot criminalize homelessness or people experiencing homelessness, so whenever we go through and clear a homeless encampment, all we can do is clear it at that point, but there is no law that prohibits them from coming back to that area, Whalen said. So the neighbors and the homeless population are stuck in a cycle right now of filing 311 reports, getting camps cleared out, then the camps moving back in. But Whalen did say there is a solution on the way, the Gateway Center opening up next year. I think it is a huge first step in addressing the problem and making it a lasting solution as opposed to just a temporary solution, Whalen said. So KOB4 asked him if he thought what the city was doing right now is a temporary solution. I would say what we have right now with the Westside Emergency Shelter is a lasting solution if people utilize it. It's great, but we just need more resources, and that is what the city of Albuquerque is doing, and this administration is doing by offering more resources like the Gateway Center and trying to offer more resources through housing programs, Whalen said. But the key to being a lasting solution is utilizing it. Whalen added on average they clear 20 to 30 encampments a week, and they have a growing list of complaints they have yet to be addressed. KB4 asked to see that list but was told to file an APOA request to get it. The information will be shared as soon as it becomes available. So I take problem with this in large because they don't ever talk about or even get the story of the unhoused communities. You know, they never want to explain on how these people ended up in this situation and what they could do to get out or anything like that. You know, they never do. They never go out there and listen to what problems are really affecting these people, and if they want to stay, you know, They never ask these people what their plans are or anything like that. So, with this being so close to home, I went out there and I talked to these people. I spoke with Jonathan Montoya. He goes by John, and another man who gave me, what he told me how he feels. His name is Lucky Romero, and another person whose name I didn't get. But so here's my short interview with them, and then just a collective of them, telling me their stories. So, warning, just there is some, harsh language, depictions of violence and of drug use and abuse, or drug use and addiction. So, here's that interview now. So, yeah, we can go get comfortable or whatever, So, Jonathan, how'd you come to end up in this situation that you're in?
My dad died. I lost my job. Basically, I ended up. Go this way.
Okay.
The sheriff's gonna piss me off.
I agree.
So my dad died. I lost my job at that time. Baby mama and me were using. I was going to have a job. But because my dad died, and then baby mama, she was pregnant. So she couldn't handle the fact that she was still using.
Let me sit on the curb or something.
She was at the time. She threw behind my back. And it pissed me off. To the point where I just, I told her, you're not going to see my kids ever. I'm going to make sure you never see my kids again. She need to go to rehab so that we can see if I feel old. Well, yeah, see if I got them all the way. She got a restraining order on me. They reversed it on me. And I ended up fucking just, like, her moving out, I had to fill the job, this house, that I was $11,000 out of $15,000 rent to own the place. And I managed to have 3 more months before they finally community court to fucking kick me out because I couldn't pay the lot fee. And the rent to owners like paid the $3,000 or $1,500, and it caused they took me off the lease, put my baby mama in the lease, and then she lost it.
Right.
So I ended up at my grandma's house where we couldn't live there no more. It was condemned, but they stuck me in the house. And I just didn't want to be there. I was still using. I went to my cousin's house to go by, and somehow they convinced me to stay there. I stayed there for 2 years. I was technically homeless, but living in her house.
Right.
And I found, but within the second year, I realized I was going to be kicked out soon. So I transitioned myself to homelessness. And I just ended up at some point, once she threw me out, I was like, good. I'm already living on the streets of Dewey.
Right.
Never home. So I went. What was it for a second? Yes.
Something you have to deal with a lot?
No. Someone stole his bag and he's getting away for it.
At this point, our interview got interrupted because somebody drove by and got out of the vehicle he was with another woman, and assaulted one of the unhoused peoples and accused him of stealing his bag. And as a result, this man he was like bleeding from his head and stuff, and he seemed relatively okay. He wasn't like too badly harmed, but it's just sad, you know, they're easy victims. But back to it.
So where were we?
Baby mom, okay. Because
So you transitioned to health. Yeah.
From there, I just, you know, drug life, like living the street life. I preferred it out there, out here, because I had to pay no rent. That was one of the concerns of bills. I hate the bills.
Me too.
And I like it out here. But at the same time, the city doesn't let you stay anywhere.
Right.
I had my RV. I found an RV on the side of the road, red tagged. And when you find a red tag, it's free game.
Right.
So I had an RV for that year. And then I found a second one.
Right.
We ended up going to a place up there on 114th Street where an old man let us bring our RVs. And like, everyone started robbing him and putting the blame on me. So I took off from there, came over here, this area. Damn, my first RV got burned down. It had to kill me. The second one got stolen from me. And I just, like, try to go place to place.
Right.
I like to collect stuff, as you know. And it's hard. I don't get all this stuff just to have a bunch of junk. I get all this stuff because everyone needs something.
Right.
Like, I got a basket full of just winter clothes and blankets that I wrote. I found a whiteboard where I and a brand new set of dry erase, free winter clothes and blankets.
Right.
Better share.
Right.
Because everybody needs a blanket or a jacket.
Right.
Yeah, a lot of people out here are druggies and drunks out here. And they don't know how to take care of themselves.
Right.
If it wasn't for me, half the money. I go to the dumpsters and find all this food and I bring it here and I feed half the idiots.
Right.
That's what it is with it. Yeah, I feed those guys.
Right.
Because they will forget to do a lot of stuff that the basic simple person would do.
Right.
Even when they're asking for food on the streets from the panhandling, they go without eating.
Right.
And they go out getting clothes, they rather get drugs and get themselves be healthy and actually help. I don't want to hear about housing. Not really. Even if the housing was $10 a month, like my cousin pays, she's still like miserable. $10, no big deal. All her bills are still paid, but she's like, what to do?
Right.
I came here because the fact that my friend Lucky, that's Lucky out there. he was here first. I stayed underneath the catwalk at first, and I was well hidden. You didn't see all this on the streets.
Right.
Then people called and city came, threw all my shit away, all the shit I had left of my RV, and I took off to next to AutoZone. I stayed there for first 2 months, and I believe you saw that in the news too. It was the homeless camp popping up on the Quail and Coors.
No, I didn't hear about that one. No.
You know, they didn't do on that one, but they didn't interview me at the time. They said that it was a homeless encampment. I was like, it's not an encampment. It's just me.
Right.
It's my place. And they had me move from there. I brought everything from over there back to the catwalk because Lucky was over here for already 2 months, and he hasn't left. They throw him out. He's still here. I'm like, okay, fuck it. I was told it by someone that if I go behind the wall here, they won't fuck with me anymore.
Right.
I drive shadows and stuff over there, but I don't like the fact that I don't like the traffic.
Right. From the freeway and shit.
Yeah, I mean, some of them are already used to being back there. They don't even listen to hear the traffic. I can't do that.
Right.
So I stayed at the entrance.
Yeah.
I'm bodyguard.
Right. And I remember walking past here to go to Walmart, and it's like back in the cut right there. It seemed like set up, just chilling, kind of. So I was like, cool, gotta chill somewhere, man.
Yeah,
And it's horrible. So if the resources were readily available, how many people do you think would use it, would take advantage of it?
5 out of 10.
5 out of 10?
Yeah. Because everyone, they are the ones that basically, it's all about the users.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, who's a functioning addict,
Right.
and a non-functioning addict.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. Non-functioning addicts, they want the high. That's all they want.
Right. And I could understand too from from being, having lived the life that I've lived, and I can understand and knowing a lot of people that have, been on the streets and ended up on the streets. Like a lot of the time, they don't want to do this. You know what I mean? It's like you said, 5 out of 10, right?
Yeah, because they basically, they have the parents who are judgmental,
Mm-hmm.
and they'll help them out. Like, I have a homegirl who's in a wheelchair right now.
Mm-hmm.
Her friends, she thought it was her friends, they deserted her. Her family doesn't want her because she uses, but and she don't know what she's ever done. She hasn't done no one wrong.
Mm-hmm.
She's fucking on the streets right now, and I chose to help her. I made a promise, and I don't break my promises, that I'll make sure she's okay, and I've been doing that.
Right.
And it's like every day, the city's gonna come and tear shit apart. I'm like, fucking hey.
How often do they come?
As of lately, because of the election,
Mm-hmm.
they were coming almost every other day.
That's what I thought.
Throwing everything away every other day.
Of course, because of the election.
That's
right?
why they say, oh, the sidewalks are lined up. Yeah, because they're making us move every single fucking day.
Right.
That we don't have a time ever to fucking actually put our stuff. Nah, we just know they're gonna come back, so we just don't bother.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it's complete bullshit. I mean, you have people like one of the mayoral candidates. He was trying to suggest, making it homeless or illegal to
Illegally homeless.
Man,
I
was
said the
like,
same
I was
thing.
like, that's the fucking wildest shit I've ever heard.
No
I'm
one
like,
even
what
want-
do you
no one was
what do you expect to do?
Yeah,
What do you expect
they
to
didn't
do?
understand what I was telling them. Like, guys, we need to vote. Why? Because the goddamn Manny wants to fucking make it illegally homeless.
And fucking Eddie Aragon, he's got this fucking, he's this talk show host. He's a piece of shit. He wanted to make pretty much houseless internment camps. Like, have you just segregated to this one fucking central area, fenced in? Yeah, man. I'm like, that's the fucking most horrible thing I've ever heard. Like,
Is today Wednesday?
That's fucking horrible. Does anybody live there?
Tomorrow. And it says today Wednesday.
Oh yeah, today's Wednesday. Yeah.
Well, that means that they. Is it or is it Tuesday?
It's Wednesday.
Really?
Yeah.
All right. Then today they clean Train Park today.
Really?
Which, after today, they're going to it's illegal to be there after before 4.
What the fuck?
That means that all these homeless people that are there are going to disperse.
And
They're about to fucking go to
gonna go
areas.
and allegedly make problems for people that like these that are just fucking complain about it but never actually want to help the situation.
Yes, by causing them to be dispersed around the city now.
Right.
There's a lot of dangerous people at Train Park.
Right.
And now to be pushed out to the other parts of in the city will cause a lot of problems for the ones that have always been in the certain areas.
Right.
I noticed new people showing up already.
Mm-hmm.
Incidental.
Right.
Team was new, and incidents like that happened.
Right.
They think he stole his backpack because someone else stole his backpack.
Right.
And it's like,
Of course, he's just looking for somebody to fucking blame anyway.
yeah. And then someone told him, well, that dude took your backpack.
Right. Of course. He's like, oh, okay. Yeah. I'm actually just gonna believe it because why not?
Yeah,
I mean-
where they? And I said, Timo, prove who did it, and fucking then don't say I didn't do it. Prove who did it.
Right.
Say that's the fucker did it.
So over the course of the last 2 years, do you think
This is fourth year now.
Oh, okay.
We're going into 4 year.
Damn,
This
that's
is
a long
there
time.
2 years.
But since the beginning of the pandemic, have you heard like stories of that being one of the reasons as to why people end up houseless?
Oh yeah, due to COVID, the community right now is get this. Everywhere we're going, like right now, the motels, the wrought iron fence that's surrounding all the motels, they're making bank. I'm telling you, they're making bank right now because those fences are popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
Those black wrought iron fences are just popping up in every single part of the city now. So, and the city's contracting that shit.
Yeah.
I know they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because they came with the guy with the that measure that was before over here yesterday.
No shit.
They're getting ready to put a wrought iron fence up here. That's the solution.
It's
To put a fence up and keep us out from being here. It's like we're just gonna be on the sidewalk then. That's the case.
yeah, seriously. Yeah, where is it? You can't fucking stop us.
Yeah,
I mean,
he literally said, "I'm not gonna move my stuff back. I'm stay right there."
right.
They make me move 10 feet.
Right.
Move 10 feet away.
Man.
And see, motels. I told her I go in the dumpsters. I found all my shit in the dumpsters. Round two. He the motel like quality. His wife had a crowbar in her hand.
Oh, this I saw this in the article.
She had that was my home at most.
Oh, that was a different.
That
Okay.
was smoke shop. This is at the quality. His wife had a crowbar in his hand. I was in the dumpster, and he wanted to hit me with the crowbar so badly.
So, just so you know, so you can get back to doing your thing.
COVID caused. I told them, can you explain to me if I had an ID and if I had a driver's license and money, and I rented a room from you, would you still get like 30 minutes of a crowbar to fucking be in your dumpster? He laughed at me. His husband laughed at me and said, "No, we wouldn't rent to you. The cops told us we don't have to rent to homeless people."
What the fuck?
That's what he should have told me. The cops said we don't have to rent. We have the right to not rent.
And which place was this?
The right across from Super 8, the one.
Down on University or up
No,
here?
right here.
Oh, okay, shit. Okay.
It's the one next to Hampton. That one. I get the good and quality mixed up. Man.
Yeah.
But the one next door to Hampton.
It's the Q, huh? It's the Q.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they shifts, and she's all like wanting to hit me so badly that I had to I found a bunch of baggies in the trash. I just threw them in the air like that. I'm not cause no problems with you guys. You want to make fun? There. Now get fucking pissed off. Now
Right.
say I'm doing something wrong.
Right.
Because instead of telling me that I can't be here because I'm homeless. I can't rent a room because I'm homeless. You're automatically 80% of your customers right now are homeless.
Like, right, you're contributing to the problem rather than helping me find a solution.
Yeah, you're basically preventing me from the lighter. Like you're basically preventing me from being able to fucking preventing me from having a foothold where I don't have to worry about where I'm going to sleep tonight.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Safely.
Here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Also, we don't sleep.
Exactly. See, like, if I had a good solid place to go, and I don't have to worry about where I'm gonna go in the morning, or like, I can focus on getting my ID, focus on getting all the things I need. I need a safe location. Like here, it's a good location, but I have to worry about tomorrow the city's gonna.
Everything else.
I have to worry about someone being a vigilante. I've been shot at it three times here.
Really.
Yeah.
Just by fucking
Being here. Just being here. But the people that just drive by have a problem with us, shoot.
Right.
They have problems, they shoot. Like this gold car, there's an old man with his little dog drives by yelling at us every day. Anytime he passes by, go home. This lady right here yelled at us. After the last time they threw us, the neighborhood doesn't want you here. Go home. I stopped and went, God bless you, man. Are you inviting me home with you? Because I don't know where home is.
Right.
I thought this was my home for a minute.
Right.
Like the ignorance of people.
Yeah,
Go home. I'm here on vacation, apparently.
Right. It's fucking it's
Just
outrageous, man. It really
goddamn.
fucking makes me mad.
That's amazing.
People having like no humanity. But so just
John Oliver had a 50-minute segment about the homeless population and how all the United States basically is having. There's Texas, Austin is now the grand poobah of machetes.
Really?
All the homeless people that carry machetes.
Right. Hell yeah, I fucking would too. I'd carry two.
And everyone and all the people that are modern class, they think normal are basically they think they're better than us. They discriminate us.
Yeah.
A lot of people don't like the fact that we are free.
Yeah.
We are truly the definition of free out here. We don't have to pay no bills. We don't have to worry about shit. We get to do what we want, and that's what they all mad
They
about.
fucking hate it.
Because They have to pay bills and shit.
It's fucking, it's capital, and you know the fact of the American dream being the fucking being a homeowner and shit, you know, and owning something. It's sad, man. But
and see, all the people right now, like I said, because of the fact that they are everyone's becoming homeless. That 80%, just because they have a car and they don't have a backpack. If you have a backpack, you're automatically discriminated. They have a backpack, they're homeless.
right.
Automatically. There's my homegirl worked at a smoke shop. She was renting a room at the Days Inn, and she went in there without a backpack, clean cut. And they gave her a room, they rented a room for her and everything. And she saw how he was treating a homeless person that tried to get a room. So the next day she went to go pay the rent. And the next day, and she went in her joggers, didn't take a shower yet, like a normal person does when they wake up in the morning. The guy was treating her like shit.
Mm-hmm.
And she told her, I'm the same person you talked all politely and how kind to yesterday. Right. Just because I'm not ready right now, you treat me like shit?
Right.
Like, what the fuck? Is that shit? A week later, they evicted her.
What the fuck?
They evict you if you have any association with homeless people.
Mm-hmm.
If you talk to a homeless person, they evict you.
That's fucked up, because they think just because you know these people that are, you know, houseless, unhoused, whatever, you know, that they're just gonna come over here in like fucking droves and take over the fucking spot or something like that. It's fucking horrible.
Well, last year the gangsters and a lot of homeless people took over the Motel 6.
Mm-hmm.
It was a big fiasco.
I think I actually heard about that.
Yeah,
like off the freeway.
Yeah, right. They ruled fucking Motel 6 for a little while.
Oh shit.
Until some head corporation finally came in and cleaned it up. Mm-hmm. But it was like everyone was just doing stupid shit.
Right.
But like that's understandable. Mm-hmm. Motel 6 had the right to do what they did, but the rest of them did not.
Right.
It was like, it pissed me off the fact. See, these moms, they think we're gonna hurt their kids. Like,
yeah, I know.
Right now, this is the time that the parents are picking up the kids.
Yeah, I know.
I tell everyone every time, don't be doing anything stupid. Parents are coming. Like this morning, parents are coming. Help me clean this up. Like, it could look nice. It's like,
right.
It sucks that the parents do have to come in and like, but these parents think we're gonna hurt their kids.
Mm-hmm.
We will fucking hurt someone trying to hurt your kids.
Right.
Before we hurt your kids.
That'll be the first thing.
Because
you don't want to make it worse on yourselves by
Exactly.
because this is where you're trying to stay. You don't want to make it fucking worse by bringing police over here by hurting somebody. Why the fuck would you do that? That's just dumb.
The police have no problem with us here.
Right.
They even said we don't. They tried to CT me.
Mm-hmm.
They tried to CT me and my lucky, and they couldn't. They said if it's city property, we'll give you a CT. If it's state property, we'll give you we'll find something to do a solution. They found out it's city property too. They came together, run our names, and then realized, and like, all right, we're gonna give you a CT. So if I move over, we're lucky right now. Am I off the property? No, that's city also. Really, it's city also. So if I go anywhere else, it's city property. So you're telling me you're CTing me from the city?
Right.
Like, you want me? I can't be in the whole damn city then. Well, it's kind of a gray area. What's gray about it? It's either I can't be on city property or I can't be on city property. If I CT me from city property, you're exiling me.
Right.
Him and the sergeant had a meeting, came back and said, we're not going to CT you,
right.
but we're going to give you the choice to make the right choice.
Right.
And they said they were going to come back that Monday. It was Thursday. And I said, so see you Monday? Meh.
And for clarity's sake, what's a CT?
Criminal trespassing.
Okay.
But a lot of stores do to homeless people because we're trying to make an honest buck.
Right,
instead of robbing someone.
Right.
You know?
So, since, KOB4 wanted to twist your story, what would you want people to know? Just one thing to know,
Oh, the fact that they twisted it?
Well, just in general, like a message, something that you feel that people generally get wrong, like, or a negative narrative
view.
Or perspective. Yeah, view. Absolutely. What would you want to shed, like, for people to understand?
Well, I want the people to understand that not all those homeless people are dangerous. A lot of homeless people are dangerous. But the fact that they look at the one bad egg out of the 10 and think the other 9 are going to do the same thing.
Right.
And that's a wrong view of it. They need to realize that a lot of people are out here because they have mental issues. Yes. A lot of us are out here because of issues. A lot of people are out here because they want to be out here. They don't want to fucking deal with the main grid of the government.
Right.
A lot of people out here don't realize that they have a son, a daughter, a mom, a dad, a relative that's homeless.
Right.
That they hide in the closet concept. And they want to act like, oh, there's no big deal. Like my friend Bumble, her mom lives right down the way. She's one of the people that calls on us all the time. She even tells her mom, stop calling the cops, mom. Like, leave us alone.
Right.
It's like, you don't live over there. I live somewhere around there.
Right.
She chooses to be homeless instead of living with her mom. She's like in her 50s. Her mom's like in her 80s. And she does this.
Right.
And like, arguing with her mom is, I'm busy. The news. 1 minute. And ended up fucking, like, all these people need to realize that I'm not here to hurt them. My people are not here. We came here, we stay away. Like, the bad eggs are all down there. Me and Lucky, he's like, you know why I'm up here? Because no one fucks with me up here. No one does some stupid shit up here. Like, I don't want to get in trouble.
Right.
Over here, we stay out of trouble.
Right.
Trouble comes to us, and I have to nip it in the butt. I'm like the mediator out here. I go to everywhere around here and trying to solve problems.
Right.
Because street justice is either going to be someone's going to get shot or go to jail.
Right.
I go around and fucking prevent neither.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And I end up getting shot at for it. I got shot at for trying to save the little homie. Part of me feels like I should have let him just get beat up, but I ran over there and I got shot at. Point blank from here, that shopping cart. Like, literally. I said, what are you doing?
Bad aim,
and he was arguing with his girl. He looked up at me and just shot. It wasn't my headlamps blinding him. He missed his shot.
Right.
God, angel saved my ass right there. But this guy was going to shoot me because I was trying to save the homie. Because he was kicking his ass for no reason because he thought he was the wrong person. Another mistaken identity. Because he had his car, he had a homeless guy walked by his trunk open, and he assumes he stole something from him.
Right.
Instantly. So he started kicking his ass for it.
So, of course, he's a fucking dickhead. He's not going to look to see if actually anything's actually missing. He's just going to jump to conclusion.
You stole something from my trunk.
Right.
Pulls the gun out, and you're going to stop and talk to the guy with the gun? No, the guy pulls the gun out, you run.
Right, yeah, fuck yeah.
There's no reason with man with a gun.
Right.
And that's what happened. And I didn't even know he had a gun. I'm blind.
Right.
I ran up there thinking that he was punching him. He was pistol whipping him.
Fuck. It's just people like that just looking for a fucking reason to be violent, honestly.
Yeah. And you don't pull a gun out unless you're gonna shoot it.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
He already had it out.
Yeah.
So, like, if that's the pistol whipping him, who would have known if he was kicking him on the floor? He was not gonna just shoot him on the ground and walk away.
Right.
That's what I was seeing. And that's what pisses me off that they would do this. Like, my boy here, you want Lucky? Come here. Nice shave. You're normal now. You came over here basically because of the fact that you stay away from staying out of trouble.
Yes. All the trouble's on there.
He's doing the cover-up story for our problem and how the news twisted our story.
Why didn't you see the news?
I know.
Well, they paint a narrative, you know. They care about how these people feel, and they never try to get, you know, your stories and like how you feel. You know what I mean? They don't give a fuck about that. You know, so that's I'm trying to, you know.
My idea was they wanted us to move out of this back corner where we're away from, like, we're at the back. We're at the back of these houses. Nobody technically has to come through here. Like on Central,
right,
where you see people sleeping on the bus stops.
Right.
Tents popped up on Zuni.
Right.
Or you know what I mean? Nobody sees us.
Right.
This little neighborhood might be pissed off about
Like
it.
out of sight, out of mind, right?
How does the city feel about seeing people on the middle of their main drag, Loop 66? They see people with tents up and living there passed out, high as a fucking kite, asleep on the damn benches. And the whole city, you would think that, I don't know, I just think that what's going on here has a lot to do with who lives on this street.
Right.
there's some big people
Dean
that live
Chavez,
around here.
the mayor.
I'm like, look at that.
Ex-mayor
Houses
Dean
back there.
Chavez.
No
The
shit.
houses right down there, back there, those are huge, badass houses that people pay a lot of money to get.
Right.
Pretty sure one of the ex-mayors lives up on this damn
Mm-hmm.
street, right? I don't know.
Dean.
Somebody told me that one of the ex-mayor or something, lived on a Chisco because a long time ago, when I had a house and I was doing side jobs to try to keep rent, I was going around with a snow shovel, knocking on doors, trying to shovel people's driveways. And I did one of the driveways up here. It took me all damn day, and I only got the $20 to ask for. You know, and I thought it was gonna be, oh, I'm gonna go make a bunch of money.
Right.
I ended up making my $20, but I used the whole day. Someone said that the ex-mayor either did or used to live there at that house. It's a huge driveway. It's fucking crazy. There's so much snow I couldn't push it anymore.
Right.
But the fact that there's a cop that lives right down here.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
You know, we have the cops come in here. They've never threatened to do anything. Like one time, a cop came and I walked up to him. I was like, "Hey, man," I was like, "Are you the sergeant? Can you have a sergeant come over here?" And he said, "I'm a supervisor." So he didn't say he was the sergeant. He didn't try to get a sergeant. He decided to take care of himself. I said, "All right." Excuse me. He said, "So I'm just waking up, and you guys tell me I have to leave, right?" He said, "Yep, you have to leave." And I was all, "So you guys are making us leave, right?" He's like, "Yeah, I'm making you leave." I said, "So you're forcing us to go?" He stopped it right there. Like, he ended that conversation.
Because he knew that he couldn't actually do that.
Yeah, he could say what he could say, like, "I'm a supervisor." So he's a supervisor, but he ain't the sergeant. He's not who I asked for.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? He basically bystepped the manager by saying that he was, but he's not. But that's all right. So I was cool with that. And that's why I asked him, making us leave. He said yes. And I said, so we have to leave. Yes. Forcing us to leave. And he's like, well, this is how it is. And then I heard the other side of the story, which is why, truthfully, to tell you the truth, I haven't left. In the end, he looked at me and said, look, I have bigger problems in this city than you guys, like, for real, I do.
That aren't actually causing any problems.
Yeah. He says, I gotta go. I got investigations. I got breaking and entries. I got, you know, he's like, even the store theft is higher on my priorities than this.
Right.
Because some people.
I tried.
But some, you know what? I want to challenge everybody in this fucking neighborhood. So if they want me to leave, I want to see every single one of them put their shit that they have in a fucking basket and see how many baskets they have.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? They're like, oh,
Absolutely.
he's got 9, 10 baskets. Put everything that you own in your house. Put it in a basket, minus the furniture. We won't even make you do the furniture. Leave your fridge that you bought. Leave your couch and your bed and your kids' beds and everybody's shit. You just leave that there. But take everything else and see how many baskets you got in your damn driveway.
Right.
I'll even come help you do it yourself if they want to say, you know, it's like, we don't have a box to put all our shit in.
Yeah.
They got a box.
Absolutely.
You know, they have their pictures on the wall. Mine are in a fucking box.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If I have an apartment, me and her have an apartment, we got a fucking house with us. Because that's what we left.
Right.
We weren't born in the fucking street. We weren't born from the ground of the street and the gutter and all the bullshit that's out there. No, we weren't. You know what I'm saying? All of us had a house at one time. All of us had a family at one time.
Right.
All of us had furniture.
Right.
And shit happens to some people, and some people make that shit happen to themselves. It happens all the time. People do that to themselves.
He talks about the resources, but why we don't want to go.
I'm an orphan. Okay, so when your lights went out when you were 19 or 20 and just starting off, your mom paid your bill for you. I don't got a mom to do that. When your old lady kicked you out the house because you were either cheating or she thought you were cheating or you were fucking up at work or you got fired and she kicked your ass out, you went to your brother's house and slept on his fucking couch.
Right.
I don't got a brother.
Right.
You went to your auntie's house a couple nights when, you know, the house flooded. Oh my God, we let the fucking sink on, God forbid. And the house flooded and now we got to be gone for a couple days. You have to go to your auntie's house. I don't have that luxury.
Right.
Not everybody burns all the bridges that they've ever crossed in order to be out here.
Right.
Circumstances happen to everybody.
And those bridges burn down by themselves or crumble, you know?
So I would challenge this whole neighborhood. If you're so high and mighty, let's pretend you can't pay that rent that month.
Right.
Let's just pretend you can't pay your freaking rent. And you ain't got your mom, you ain't got your brother, you ain't got your fucking auntie, nobody to call. Nobody to call for help. And now you got to leave your fucking house because the judge says you got to leave.
Right.
So you got to leave your house.
And the sheriff comes and fucking
Pack all
kicks
this
you
shit,
out and shit.
Pack it up, and what are you gonna do? Get a storage? Haha, get a storage. I paid on a fucking storage for 3 years, bro. 3 years. I had my kid's shit, my wife's shit in a storage. 3 fucking years. And that's just the first time we had to put it in storage. That was the last time actually. We've had to put stuff in storage. And things are easier. But when you and your spouse can't get along and you split up, well, you got nowhere to go. You got no mom, you got no brother, you got no aunties, no good friends, because good friends are hard to come by. Bro.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're hard to come by. I mean, somebody you can trust to sleep on your couch is hard to come by.
Right.
Much as finding a fucking couch to sleep on.
Mm-hmm.
Or get your shit together for 30 days. Then they got programs. They got programs out here. Yeah, programs. If you go do this, you go do that. They take away all your freedoms. They take your freedom of being able to walk the fuck around and not have to be behind doors at a certain time because you're a grown ass man.
Chunky,
See, they provide funds for the wealthy and the middle class to go to stadiums and whatnot. They provide all these luxury places or nice places for them to go entertain them.
A luxury job.
To go to games or whatever they want to go do, stadiums. They provide all these millions of dollars.
All right.
But they can't, for the homeless, they can't provide a piece of land in the middle of the town, in this end town, in this end town. Okay, you guys want a place to go? Go to this place. There's a piece of land, you guys can stay there. There's a piece of land, you can stay here. There's a piece of land, you can stay there in the middle and on the east and west side. No, they can't do that. They'd rather us have to sleep on the street and kick us out. And why? So they can stay busy and provide work for them.
Because it doesn't increase capital. It doesn't put money in their pockets.
Right,
Yeah,
that's
but
exactly
even
right.
when
And
they
they
say
don't. And see,
they say certain places are okay, then all you get is a bunch of violence. Literally a bunch of violence.
Right.
Because you're putting a bunch of people who have come from all different areas of town and all different walks of life, and they all hit a certain circumstances. So now you want us all to be in the same fucking park together,
right?
And not beat somebody's ass. Like
right.
for real, I got anger issues. People got to watch what they say to me,
right?
And that ain't cool for other people. That's why I like to have my own fucking.
That's why you like to be. Yeah.
I can go home. You know what I'm saying?
Provide a jail, an old jail with a bunch of rules.
Putting you in jail.
And you have to have an ID. A lot of us don't have IDs.
And it's so hard to get one, man.
They're asking you to go to jail.
Yeah.
Going to jail is easier.
You're willing to go to jail.
It's easier because you go to jail, you get fed.
Fed, free food, you get a bed, you get a...
gas, everything's free, you get to shower. Look at me, bro. Look at my fucking hands, bro. This ain't me, bro.
Right.
You know what I mean?
In Dallas, they were kicking me out of a place. I said, and they said, well, how do you get your food? I said, well, sometimes I have to go panhandle. Sometimes I have to go do a yard. Or sometimes I have to just for my food. And, okay, well, I bought your food stamps. I couldn't get it because I didn't have an ID. Texas. Here in New Mexico, you just have to provide your social security number and stuff, and you can get it a lot easier than Texas. But anyways, they're kicking me off a place, and then they go, well, do you want to go to jail? I said, let me see, 3 hots and a cot.
Fuck yeah, I want to go to jail. Lock me the fuck up.
Let's go.
Yeah, but I ended up telling that cop.
No.
I ended up telling that cop that morning. I said, all right, bro, then I want you to give me a citation. I asked him for a citation. When he said, I'm not forcing you to leave, I said, hey, first I came at him with respect. That's what I always do. I come with respect. I come talking shit, yelling, telling me you can't.
Don't want to cause a problem, you know? You don't want more problems.
Look, bro, check it out. I'm going to do whatever you ask me to do because you're a cop. And I'm not. So I'm going to do what you ask me to do. But I'm going to say some things, and I don't mean to disrespect, but like, give me a ticket then.
Right.
Give me a citation, bro.
Right.
And he tries to, weave around. He's like, well, then you have to go to court. Yeah. If you got to go to court, and then you miss court, you might get a warrant.
Yeah, and then even if you make it, you get court fees and shit.
He's trying to talk me out of getting a ticket. I'm like, please give me a ticket.
Right.
I'll leave.
He's just lazy ass, don't want to do the fucking paperwork.
Well, what it is they, like he's saying, bro.
Oh, you get that is true.
For some reason, that cop told me, I can't force you to leave. When he said I can't force you to leave,
Yeah.
the park.
Right.
You know what? Really? I told the city guy that comes here. Because the city, like, he's the boss, right?
Yeah, I seen 2 of their trucks the other day.
Well, I come here and I've been respectful with these people. They like me because I clean up my mess. When they come, I clean up. They don't have to work when they come to my spot. When they come to my spot, they get to kick back for like an hour and a half while I'm throwing my own shit away.
Right.
Picking up my own trash, raking up my own shit. That's what I do. I pick my shit up and I throw it away myself.
Right.
And they like that about me.
Right.
Because I work. That's what I do. I'm a worker.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm like, I'm trying to get a job at the city by doing this shit. You know, if I get a house or I get somewhere to stay for 30 days, I'm gonna go apply at the city, bro. And the guys that have seen me work, they can't deny me a job.
Right.
They'll be like, you got a place to stay?
What kind of work do you do?
You're not living outside no more? All right, cool. Got you a job.
What kind of work do you do?
On the same token,
work for the
on the
city.
same token,
That's
it
why
starts at the top.
What do you
It's our government system. It's our government system.
Landscaping?
Our government system. They come up with methadone. They come up with Suboxone. They come up with all these blues. Okay, to give the people. It's a maintenance drug now. To give the people that are on these drugs that they're gonna have to stay on, and they're easier to control. Like that.
Right.
See,
Makes you reliant on the system.
Fire with fire.
Right.
This story that these people tell, it's honest, and it's a story. It's the reality, you know. And as he said, you know, there's 5 out of 10 people would, you know, take the resources if they were readily available to them to have a better life. It's 5 out of 10 people don't want to be out there. It's the other 5 that we have to prevent from happening going forward. We have to create a world that where nobody ever has to end up like this. Nobody will end up like this. Otherwise, you know, we have to help the people who want it, who will take it. And we have to give them the opportunity to help themselves too. Because a lot of them, they don't want to be out there. Like, they can't get their IDs, they can't get their social security cards, they can't get a job because they don't have a place to smell good, and they can't get a place to smell good because, like Jonathan said, the hotels won't rent to them, even if they had money, you know. Yeah, it's toxic for these people. There's no avenue for them to get better because capitalist society prevents them from doing so. But yet, at the same time, everybody hates looking at them. They accuse them of being problematic. When even Jonathan said himself, you know, like, you know, we're not going to hurt anybody. If anything, we're going to hurt the people that are hurting anybody. You know, it's bullshit. It's inhumane. There's empty lots everywhere. Lucky, after, you know, I finished recording, there's this little empty lot with like trees and bushes and stuff. He's like, you know what, all right, you know, you want us to fend for ourselves and, you know, clean up or something, let us have that plot. Give me a hatchet or something. I'll chop those trees down and I'll make whatever out of it, you know. I'll stay out of the way. And we'll build something, you know, to have our own little spot. Because he's married, he's got a wife, you know. He built her this, basically a mobile home, you know. It was really tight too. He let me saw it and it was cool. And I saw it not too long ago and it's gotten bigger since then, you know. But these people are just trying to survive and just trying to live their best life, and the things that they have to deal with, it's a tragedy. These people aren't people to the rest of society. And that needs to change. But I'm going to look for somebody who'll be willing to talk with me about the city's agreement with the union, and explain some of the language in there with me to verify some of the things that I pointed out. And if you want to support my work, here is the link to my Cash App and my PayPal, because I have kept you here for maybe like almost 2 hours too long. I love y'all. Take care of each other. Because we protect us and Uhuru.